They didn't laugh loudly. That would have been cruel. They laughed softly. The kind of laugh that pretends to be polite, while reminding you exactly where you stand. Or in Lena Hartley's case, where you didn't. The evacuation sirens began at 1942 colony time. Red emergency lights flooded the mining settlement of Kepler 442c, washing steel platforms and dust-choked walkways in warning pulses. Workers dropped tools. Cargo cranes froze mid-lift. Automated voices echoed through the canyon settlement. Containment breach in Sector 12. All civilians proceed to transport bays. Boots pounded across metal. Voices shouted. Transports ignited. Everyone ran. Everyone except Lena. Her wheelchair hummed softly as she maneuvered toward the ramp. Mechanical braces hugged her legs, motionless beneath a reinforced thermal blanket. The colony had long ago decided what she was. Limited. Fragile. Slow. A pair of off-duty miners rushed past her. "You hear that?" one muttered. "Probably another unstable dig collapse." They glanced at Lena struggling against the crowd flow. One of them smirked. Not malicious. Just dismissive. Someone should have evacuated her first. The other shrugged. She won't make it to the bays in time anyway. They kept running. Lena kept rolling. She had learned years ago that pity sounded a lot like concern. A security officer skidded to a stop beside her. "Miss, I can assign you priority transport." His voice was tight. Rushed. "I'm fine," she replied calmly. The officer hesitated, clearly not convinced, but the ground trembled beneath their feet. A deep vibration rolled through the steel platforms. Not the sharp crack of rockfall. Not the metallic shriek of machinery failing. This was different. Low. Alive. Then it came. A sound so massive it didn't enter her ears first. It traveled through the wheels of her chair. Up the frame. Into her bones. A scream. Not human. Not mechanical. Something ancient. Something furious. The security officer froze. What was that? No one answered. Because it came again. Longer. Sharper. Filled with pain. The crowd paused mid-stampede. For just 1 second. And in that second, Lena knew. "That's not a containment breach," she whispered. Another tremor split the canyon. Dust cascaded from the upper quarry walls. Cargo crates toppled. The evacuation transports lifted early, engines screaming as they cleared the atmosphere. Somebody shouted. "Sector 12 sealed. It's been sealed for decades." Sector 12. The abandoned excavation pit. The one marked unstable. Restricted. Dangerous. The place no one was allowed to study. The scream came again. This time it wasn't rage. It was desperation. And beneath it, a grinding metallic groan. Chains. Lena turned her wheelchair away from the evacuation ramp. A technician grabbed the back handle. "Hey, where are you going? That sector's locked down." "That's not a cave-in," Lena said quietly. The technician stared at her like she'd snapped. The ground shook again. A fissure split across the far canyon wall. And from somewhere deep below, a thunderous yank of metal against stone. The technician swallowed hard. "You think something's alive down there?" Lena didn't answer. She didn't need to. She had grown up staring at the colony's infrastructure maps. Watching power fluctuations others ignored. Monitoring energy reroutes buried under classified corporate asset protection. She had seen anomalies in Sector 12 for years. Power draws at night. Unregistered heat signatures. Suppressed transmission signals. They said it was unstable rock. She knew better. The screen tore upward again. Closer now. Raw. The technician slowly released her chair. Security alarms intensified. Unauthorized seismic activity detected in restricted zone. The evacuation sirens shifted pitch. That wasn't protocol. That was fear. Lena rolled toward the canyon's restricted perimeter gate. Her hands were steady. Her heart was not. Behind her, someone shouted. "You can't go down there." She didn't stop. She couldn't run. She had never been able to. But she had learned something the colony never understood. You don't need legs to move forward. You need a reason. Another violent crash echoed from below. Metal screaming. Stone cracking. And through it all, a voice. Faint. Distorted. But unmistakably a word. "Help." Lena reached the sealed access lift to Sector 12. The emergency override panel blinked red. Access denied. She plugged in her wrist console. Code cascaded across her display. Behind her, the last transport ignited into the sky. Dust swallowed the settlement. For the first time in her life, no one was watching her. No one was laughing. No one was offering pity. It was just her. And the thing beneath the canyon. The override light turned green. The lift platform began to descend. As she dropped into darkness, the scream shook the earth again. But this time, it didn't sound like rage. It sounded like hope. And somewhere far below, chains strained under tension. The lift groaned as it descended. Dust spiraled upward past the metal cage, illuminated only by the weak red emergency strobes mounted along the shaft. The deeper Lena went, the colder the air became. The screaming stopped. That frightened her more than the sound itself. Silence meant exhaustion. Or worse. Her wrist console flickered with interference. Signal disruption increased with depth. Whatever was below didn't want to be monitored. Or someone didn't want it monitored. The platform shuddered to a halt. The doors slid open. Darkness swallowed the light. Lena rolled forward slowly. At first, she saw nothing but excavation equipment, rusted drills, abandoned pylons, cracked transport rails. The remnants of a dig site that had supposedly been shut down after a structural collapse. That was the official story. Then she saw the chains. They weren't debris. They were anchored. Massive titanium restraints bolted deep into canyon stone. Each link as thick as her torso. They stretched across the pit floor and disappeared into shadow. Something shifted. A slow, heavy drag of metal across rock. Lena's breath caught. A shape moved in the darkness. Not machinery. Not debris. Alive. The emergency lights flickered again, and for one single heartbeat, the entire cavern illuminated. Wings. Folded. Pierced through with stabilizer spikes. Black scales fractured with old burns and surgical implants. Restraint pylons drilled into living flesh. The lights dimmed again. But she had already seen enough. It wasn't a myth. It wasn't a fossil. It was a dragon. And it was chained. A low rumble rolled through the cavern. Not a roar. Breathing. Slow. Labored. One enormous golden eye opened in the darkness. It locked onto her instantly. Not with fury. Not with hunger. With calculation. And pain. The eye narrowed slightly. The ground vibrated as the creature shifted its weight, testing restraints it had clearly tested thousands of times before. The chains answered with a grinding shriek. Lena swallowed. "You're not a containment breach," she whispered. The dragon's nostrils flared. Warm air rushed across the pit, carrying the scent of ash and iron. Near the central anchor pillar, something blinked weakly. A translation node. Corporate insignia stamped along its casing. She rolled closer. The dragon's eye followed every movement. Not aggressive. Alert. She activated the node. Static flooded the cavern speakers. Fragments of broken code scrolled across her console. Signal degraded. Suppressed. She rerouted through her own interface. The static cleared. A voice emerged. Not thunderous. Not monstrous. Hoarse. "You are not them." The words were strained, as if unused for years. Lena's chest tightened. "No," she said quietly. "I'm not." The dragon's massive head shifted slightly, chains tightening with the motion. Metal bit into scale. "They said you were unstable," she continued. The eye burned brighter in the dark. "They said I was dangerous," the dragon answered. The translator struggled to keep up, distorting the low-frequency vibration into human language. "Are you?" she asked. A pause. The chains creaked again as the dragon inhaled deeply. "I defended my sky." The words echoed through the cavern. Images flickered through Lena's mind, orbital patrol ships, mining fleets, corporate expansion. Kepler 442c wasn't the first colony established here. It had replaced something. Someone. "You were here first," she realized. The dragon's pupil narrowed. "They came with drills." Another tug against the restraints. Not violent. Just tired. They called it resource extraction. Lena looked around the cavern. The pylons. The suppression field generators. The energy siphons connected directly to the colony grid. "They're drawing power from you," she whispered. Silence. Then. "Yes." Not containment. Exploitation. The scream earlier hadn't been rage. It had been agony. Above them, faint sirens echoed again. Security was mobilizing. Time was short. Lena rolled closer to the primary anchor column. Up close, the damage was worse. Scales cracked open by restraint bolts. wing membranes torn and fused against stone. The dragon watched her carefully. "You are small," it said. She smiled faintly. "I get that a lot." The dragon's eye flickered, something almost like curiosity. "You do not run." "I can't." The cavern went quiet again. The dragon studied her chair, the braces around her legs. "You came toward the danger." Lena met its gaze directly. "So did you." For the first time since she descended, the dragon's breathing steadied. A faint tremor shook the ceiling above. Security forces approaching the lower shaft. Lena's console flashed warning indicators, perimeter override attempts detected. She turned back to the anchor system. "These chains," she said softly. "They're not just physical." The dragon's eye hardened. "They bind gravity itself." Of course they did. The colony wasn't foolish enough to rely on metal alone. Gravitational dampeners pinned the dragon's mass to the canyon floor. Even if the chains snapped, the field would hold. Unless. She began typing rapidly. Power flow charts appeared across her display. Energy draw from the colony grid fed directly into the suppression array. The same grid she helped optimize last year. The same grid whose vulnerabilities she knew by heart. The dragon sensed the shift in her focus. "What are you doing?" it asked. Lena didn't look up. "They think I'm fragile," she said quietly. Security boots thundered faintly down the shaft above. "They think I can't lift anything." Her fingers moved faster. Power reroutes cascaded across the screen. Overload thresholds climbed. The cavern lights flickered. The dragon felt it immediately. A subtle shift. A fraction less weight pressing into its bones. Its massive wing twitched, just slightly. The chains groaned. Above them, a voice shouted through a loudspeaker. "Unauthorized access confirmed. Step away from the containment asset." Asset. Lena's jaw tightened. She glanced up at the dragon. "Do you trust me?" The golden eye studied her. A human in a wheelchair. Small. Breakable. Alone. The suppression field flickered again. A chain strained tighter than it had in decades. The dragon exhaled slowly. "Yes." And for the first time in 30 years, the gravitational field faltered. The first chain didn't snap. It screamed. A metallic shriek tore across the cavern as gravitational pressure fluctuated. The dragon's massive body shifted for the first time in decades, not violently, not wildly, but deliberately. Security forces burst through the lower shaft doors. "Step away from the containment asset immediately." Energy rifles charged. Red targeting lasers danced across scales the size of armored vehicles. Lena didn't look back. Her wrist console glowed with cascading power reroutes. The suppression array drew 62% of the colony's grid output. She cut it to 41%. Then 33%. Above, lights flickered across the entire settlement. Mining cranes stalled mid-rotation. Processing plants powered down. Someone screamed over comms. "Why is the grid destabilizing?" "Because the fragile girl rewrote it." The dragon inhaled. Deep. Its chest expanded against titanium restraints. The gravitational dampeners pulsed, struggling to compensate. A security commander stepped forward. "Shut it down. Now." Lena finally turned her chair to face them. Her voice was calm. "You've been draining a sentient being to power your colony." The commander's expression hardened. "That creature leveled 2 orbital ships 30 years ago." The dragon's eye shifted slightly. "They fired first." The translator carried its voice across the cavern. Several guards faltered. The commander barked. "It's manipulating you." Lena shook her head. "No. You manipulated the report." She pulled archived combat logs from her console, data she'd secretly copied years ago when she noticed inconsistencies. Projected holographically between them. Corporate fleet entries. Weapons discharge timestamps. Orbital debris vectors. The dragon's attack had occurred after atmospheric bombardment began. It hadn't attacked a colony. It had defended a nesting site. Security hesitated. The commander raised his weapon anyway. "None of that matters. It's too dangerous to release." Lena's hands moved again. She redirected power to the canyon's old mining laser grid. The cavern trembled. A precision beam fired, not at the dragon. At the anchor bolts. One restraint post exploded in a controlled burst of molten steel. The dragon's left wing shifted outward slightly. Just a few meters. But it was the first full extension in 30 years. The shockwave knocked several guards off their feet. Weapons discharged reflexively. Energy blasts struck scales. They dissipated harmlessly. The dragon didn't roar. It endured. Lena's voice sharpened. Stop shooting. You're only proving its point. The commander ignored her. Fire at full yield. Another volley erupted. The dragon moved this time. Not to attack. To shield. A massive wing unfolded fully between Lena and the incoming fire. Energy bolts splashed across black scales, scattering into harmless sparks. The cavern filled with dust and heat. Lena looked up at the enormous shield above her. You don't have to protect me, she whispered. The dragon's voice vibrated through the wing structure. You broke my sky. The second anchor cracked. Gravitational stabilizers overloaded. Warning sirens changed pitch, not evacuation this time. Structural failure risk. Above ground, the colony flickered into partial blackout. Mining AI systems rebooted. Docking bays sealed automatically. Corporate headquarters began emergency lockdown. Lena rerouted one final command. Overload cascade initiated. The main gravitational dampener surged past safe limits. For one breathless moment, everything went silent. Then the field collapsed. Not explosively. Not violently. It simply stopped. The weight pinning the dragon to the canyon floor vanished. Chains sagged. Then snapped. One after another. Like thunder rolling through steel. The dragon rose slowly. Not with fury. With dignity. 30 years of captivity unfolding upward. Dust spiraled around wings that scraped the cavern ceiling. The guards backed away. Weapons lowered instinctively. The commander whispered. Oh. The dragon turned its massive head toward him. Its golden eye burned, not with hatred. With memory. You feared what you could not control, it said. The commander tried to speak. No words came. The dragon shifted its gaze back to Lena. She was very small beneath it. Wheelchair half buried in dust. Console sparking from overload. Breathing hard. You did not lift the chains, the dragon said quietly. No, she replied. I lifted the lie. Above them, emergency lights died completely. The cavern ceiling cracked open as the dragon extended both wings fully for the first time in 3 decades. Rock split. Moonlight poured down through the widening fracture. Security scrambled to retreat. No one fired. No one dared. The dragon crouched low beside Lena. Will you be crushed if I ascend? She smiled faintly despite everything. I've handled worse. A faint rumble, almost amusement. The dragon wrapped one enormous clawed limb gently around her wheelchair frame. Careful. Precise. Lifting her as easily as a fallen feather. The commander shouted. Do not let it leave the atmosphere. But the colony grid was already failing. Orbital defense cannons offline. Targeting systems blind. Because the fragile girl designed half their redundancies. The dragon surged upward. Through rock. Through dust. Through 30 years of confinement. The canyon exploded open in a shower of stone. The night sky received them. For the first time in decades. Kepler 442c saw its original guardian rise. And cradled in its grasp. A human girl they said couldn't lift anything. They were wrong. The canyon didn't explode. It opened. Rock folded outward as if the planet itself exhaled. Dust spiraled into the night sky in a towering column while fractured stone rained back into the pit. Shockwaves rippled across the mining settlement, rattling towers and cracking glass panels. Workers stared upward. Transports hovering mid-evacuation froze in the air. Because rising from the canyon, wings eclipsing the twin moons, was a dragon. Not a beast in panic. Not a monster in rage. A sovereign returning to the sky. And in one massive, careful claw. A wheelchair. Lena gripped the armrests as cold wind tore across her face. For the first time since arriving on Kepler 442c, she saw the colony from above. It looked smaller. Less powerful. Less certain. Sirens shifted again, now broadcasting colony-wide emergency status. Unidentified airborne megafauna detected. Orbital defense preparing to engage. Above the atmosphere, defense satellites rotated. Rail cannons powered. Target locks attempted acquisition. The dragon felt it instantly. They will fire, it said calmly. Not if I stop them, Lena replied. She pulled her console from emergency mode and accessed the colony's orbital control network. Denied. She expected that. She bypassed through mining grid architecture instead, a backdoor she'd warned them about years ago. They had laughed. Who's going to hack us through drilling firmware? The girl who couldn't run. Satellite targeting arrays flickered. Weapon systems hesitated. On the command deck in orbit, officers shouted over each other. Why are the locks unstable? Targeting drift. Defense grid dezinc at 40%. Back below, the Dragon hovered above the canyon rim, wings generating a low thunder across the valley. It did not attack. It did not breathe fire. It waited. The colony governor's voice blasted across open comm channels. Return the containment asset immediately. You are violating corporate authority. The Dragon's eye narrowed. I do not recognize your authority. The translator carried its voice across every speaker in the settlement. Across orbit. Across broadcast relays. Workers froze in place. Miners stared at screens. Children watched from transport windows. The governor tried again. That creature destroyed 2 fleet cruisers. It is a hostile war asset. Lena projected the archived combat footage across the sky. Holographic reconstruction filled the air above the colony. Corporate ships descending first. Orbital strikes igniting forested valleys. Dragon hatchlings scattering. A defensive counterattack. The truth. Silence spread. The Dragon's voice rolled like distant thunder. I defended my young. No one laughed now. No one dismissed. The orbital cannons powered down fully. Not because of mercy. Because Lena had locked them out completely. The governor's tone shifted. You've destabilized the colony grid. You're risking thousands of lives. Lena's voice was steady. You risked them first when you chained a sentient being to power your profits. Energy readings from the canyon pit began dropping rapidly. The siphon systems that had drained the Dragon for 30 years were offline. Across the settlement, lights flickered again, this time permanently. Backup generators kicked in. Emergency systems only. Luxury infrastructure dark. The Dragon looked down at the colony. You built your sky from my captivity. It beat its wings once. The shockwave extinguished every decorative light in the corporate district. Only essential life support systems remained active. A message. Not destruction. Correction. Orbit Command tried one last override. Emergency firing sequence. Manual trigger. Lena anticipated it. She rerouted the entire mining laser grid upward. Not to fire. To blind. Precision beams flashed harmlessly across satellite optics. Sensors overloaded. Every defense platform went dark. Total visual blackout. In orbit, panic spread. They've neutralized us. The Dragon exhaled slowly. Warm air rolled across the colony rooftops. I could burn this settlement to ash. The governor said nothing. Everyone knew it was true. The Dragon lowered slightly toward the central command tower. Lena's chair tilted forward gently in its grasp. But I will not. The words carried weight. Choice. Because you are not my enemy, the Dragon continued. Your fear is. It turned its massive head toward Lena. You freed me. She shook her head slightly. I exposed them. A long pause. Then the Dragon rose higher, breaking fully through cloud cover. Up toward the stars. Orbital patrol ships drifted backward instinctively. Weapons offline. Pilot silent. The Dragon stopped at the edge of atmosphere. Floating between planet and vacuum. 30 years stolen. 30 years endured. It looked down at the colony one final time. Then it did something no one expected. It transmitted. Not a threat. A declaration. I am sovereign of Kepler 442c. This world was mine before your drills touched it. You will negotiate. Or you will leave. The message pulsed through interstellar relays. Corporate headquarters in 3 systems received it simultaneously. And unlike the buried reports from 30 years ago, this one could not be erased. Below, the colony stood in stunned silence. No fire. No casualties. No war. Just the truth hanging in orbit. Lena looked up at the Dragon holding her safely against the void. Are you going to leave? She asked softly. The Dragon considered the stars. Then the planet. My sky remains here. And for the first time, Kepler 442c belonged to someone who remembered what it was before it was mined. The first fleet didn't arrive with weapons charged. It arrived with lawyers. Corporate arbitration vessels slipped into orbit 72 hours later, flanked by neutral interstellar oversight cruisers. Not warships. Witnesses. Because once the Dragon's transmission hit open galactic channels, it stopped being a containment issue. It became a sovereignty violation. For 30 years, the mining corporation had classified Sector 12 as a geological hazard. For 30 years, they siphoned energy from a sentient being and buried the evidence. Now the footage played everywhere. A dragon shielding a human girl in a wheelchair. A colony defense grid disabled not by firepower, but by engineering. A sovereign demanding negotiation instead of annihilation. The narrative collapsed overnight. Kepler 442c went from profitable extraction site to legal catastrophe. In orbit, a neutral mediation platform was established. The dragon did not coil aggressively. It did not posture. It simply hovered. Massive. Unignorable. Lena sat beside it on a reinforced observation deck specially constructed for her accessibility, something the colony had never prioritized until this week. Across from them, corporate representatives avoided direct eye contact with the dragon's golden gaze. The Oversight Tribunal spoke first. Evidence confirms that pre-colonial sentient habitation existed on this world. A pause. Evidence confirms unlawful containment and forced energy extraction. Another pause. Evidence confirms defensive action was misreported as aggression. Silence filled the chamber. The governor attempted damage control. We believed it posed an extinction-level threat. The dragon's voice rolled through the station, calm as vacuum. You feared what you could not own. No one argued. Because it was true. Lena leaned forward slightly. You built your survival on a lie, she said. Now you can build something else. The tribunal delivered its ruling within hours. Corporate charter revoked. Executive immunity stripped. Full reparations owed. And most importantly, recognition of sovereign planetary claim. Kepler 442c was no longer a corporate asset. It was a shared world under treaty. Not conquered. Negotiated. The dragon descended back to the canyon that once imprisoned it. But it did not reclaim the pit. It reshaped it. Wings carved terraces instead of craters. Heat sealed fractured stone into glass-like structures that shimmered under twin suns. The old suppression pylons were melted down and reforged into something new. An open forum. Human and dragon alike. And Lena? They tried to call her a hero. She declined every interview. Declined every sponsorship offer. Declined every Symbol of Resilience award. One evening, as twin moons rose over the transformed canyon, she sat at the edge of the new sky terrace. The dragon coiled nearby, not looming. Present. You had the power to destroy them, she said quietly. Yes. You didn't. The dragon's golden eye reflected starlight. Power is not proven by destruction. A long pause. You broke my chains, it continued. Lena smiled faintly. I just turned off the system. The dragon lowered its massive head beside her. They believed you were weak. She looked down at her motionless legs. They still do. The dragon's voice softened. They are wrong. Below them, human workers and dragon hatchlings moved freely across the canyon terraces. No guards. No chains. Just coexistence. News networks across the galaxy summarized the event with dramatic headlines. Human engineer frees ancient war beast. Corporate collapse after sovereignty scandal. But historians would later simplify it. They would write. The dragon did not burn the colony. The human did not raise a weapon. They ended exploitation without firing a shot. Because strength is not in how hard you strike. It's in what you refuse to become. As the stars stretched endlessly above Kepler 442c, the dragon spoke one final truth. You could not walk. Lena looked up at the sky she helped return. I didn't need to. The dragon spread its wings slowly, casting a vast shadow over the canyon. You moved the world. And across the galaxy, a new understanding quietly formed about humanity. They are not the strongest because they overpower. They are strongest because, when given every reason for revenge, they choose better.